9th of September, Monday, Ukraine Crisis Media Center starts its work, and today we have the event on presenting the Black Sea Regional Hub, sir. And actually, there will be the announcements about launching this hub, and today we are going to talk together with Robert Corliss van Wofford, Head of Department of Cultural Cooperation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, Vanessa Fraga-Frohl, Head of Program Cultural Emergency Response, Daria Dyakova, Director of Museum for Change, also Vasil Roshko, Head of a Heritage Monitoring Lab and Head of NGO Tustan, and Ihor Poshevailo, CEO of National Museum of Revolution of Dignity, co-founder of Agency of Cultural Resilience. So please, dear Mr. Van Wofford, tell us more about this initiative, about opening the regional hub in Ukraine, the Black Sea Hub, how that's gonna work.
To say a few words on the opening of the Black Sea Hub. For us, it's a very important occasion. On behalf of Government of the Netherlands, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the International Cultural Cooperation Department, we have been supporting our key partners in Ukraine, coordinated by Dutch-based NGO SER, Cultural Emergency Response, to work in the area of cultural emergency. And of course, at the moment that is extremely important in Ukraine, given the fact that the war now affects so many cultural objects in this country. The support that the Netherlands has provided over the last 2.5 years for Ukraine, mostly focused on military and critical infrastructure support, but it also included an important component of support to the cultural sector. The cultural sector being, of course, very close to the hearts and minds of your people, and the custodians of cultural work are the organizations that are working together in this platform called the Black Sea Hub.
Thank you. I would like to mention that organization from the Netherlands, Cultural Emergency Response, that is CER, together with Ukrainian partners, they are launching this Black Sea Regional Hub, and the partners in Ukraine are Agency of Cultural Resilience, and also NGO Museum for Change. And CER has been cooperating with those three partner organizations many times already and continues to support them. And therefore, I would like to give the floor to the representative of CER, Ms. Vanessa Fraga-Frohl, in order for her to tell us more about the work of the Black Sea Hub and its relevance today in Ukrainian conditions.
Very much, and thank you for giving the opportunity for us to be here. As it has been mentioned, we are an NGO based in the Netherlands, and we mainly get our finances through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through the Department for International Cultural Cooperation. So we are an NGO working with the government, and we have been supporting, as you mentioned, our partners here in Ukraine, who has been a little bit going away from their own institutions to take care of other cultural institutions that have been suffering from the war. So, as you mentioned, the three institutions are ACURE, HIMO, and Museum for Change. They are based in different regions in Ukraine. So, actually, Lviv for HIMO, ACURE is in Kiev, and Museum for Change is in Odesa. They have been working in these regions, but going also beyond to help other cultural institutions. We have been cooperating with them since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, And mainly they have been providing other institutions with packing materials, but also recording damage and doing damage assessment missions. So their scope has been very broad in emergency response, but they have been working all the time in an emergency, giving ad hoc support. With this hub, what we want to create is a structure to be better prepared and to have a more coordinated and impactful response. But we also want to gather all the knowledge that during these years have been acquired by these three organizations in the important work that they have been doing, and also disseminating this knowledge so cultural institutions are prepared. Because as we are all aware, when there is an emergency, very often, even though we believe heritage is at the base of our societies, is often disregarded. And this hub is actually part of a bigger network because SER, even though it's based in the Netherlands, we are working globally. So the regional hub in the Black Sea will be the fifth of a network of hubs. We have the first one started in Central America because of natural hazards. They have a lot of natural disasters. And then we have another one in the Caribbean, in the Western Balkans, and in Levant. All these hubs have been working, giving emergency response to cultural heritage, but also preparing everyone in the ecosystem to respond better.
Дякую, пані Ванесо.
Thank you, Ms. Vanessa. And I would like to give the floor now to Daria Diakova, head of the Museum for Change, actually from Odesa. Ms. Daria came to us. Odesa is reacting to the challenges that are brought by Russian full-scale invasion, and center of Odesa and some memorials were attacked by Russian rockets many times already. So, Ms. Daria, tell us more about the experience that you gained and how do you plan to use that, to apply that, to implement that, and to work in the newly created organization. Hello. I would like to start telling about the organization itself. It's existing, like Museum for Change is existing since 2017 in order to improve the communication and fundraising for museums of Odessa. All of that started based on Odessa Arts Museum. The activists came together and they started fundraising. First, they bought the new printer for the tickets, not to be of the Soviet kind of style, but to have the foreign type of tickets as we see it abroad. And then we received more and more projects. However, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, we already realized that we have certain experience. We are working in the museum. We've been preparing ourselves to war. And we have packed the packaging materials. We installed the satellite internet. We didn't know some things, but we realized we need to do something in case if this happens. So on the first day, we took off the exposition on the first floor and we packed all of that and we've hidden all of that. Unfortunately, in other cultural institutions and in Ukraine, many of those, they didn't have such an opportunity. So in the framework of Museum for Change, we started looking for partners and involving money in order to preserve cultural heritage, to have the support of different teams from cultural institutions. And as far as that turned out to be efficient, we continue working in this field. And in those 2.5 years, we've helped more than 100 institutions all over Ukraine, starting from procurement of all the necessary materials, and not just the packaging materials, but also some software for digitalizing of collections, some small photo studios, again, and ending up with search and equipment of premises for transportation and preservation of cultural heritage. In the framework of this project, we are planning to fully collect all the results, all the gains of the museums, archives, and libraries that already have some experience and to structure all the information. There are museums where there were hits into the premises themselves. Somewhere there were some hits nearby, some had fires, some were involved in evacuation. So we want to preserve all that in one space because the situation unfortunately continues and these things are being repeated in order for the cultural managers and representatives and staff of those institutions to have the understanding how to react. Because thanks to the fact that during this time we've been visiting various trainings, we were interested in all of that information, we made up the precise plan. So on the 5th of November last year, when the rocket fell near the museum, we realized already how we should act. For 3 days, we did nothing. An international organization came. They were criminalizing everything. They were documenting everything. So we would like to share the experience. We are so happy that we have such a great team. And I am confident that we will launch this project successfully and we will continue. Thank you very much, Daria. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Vasil, founder of Heritage Monitoring Lab. Mr. Vasil is actively working in documenting of the damage and the losses that Ukrainian had as a result of Russian invasion. So please tell us about the experience of your organization and your personally, how that will be implemented in the Black Sea Regional Hub, and what can be received by the visitors and other museums and colleagues, what experience you can share, and maybe some information you still need from your international partners or other equipment, knowledge, etc. What are the opportunities and needs as of today? Thank you very much. Hello, a few words about our organization. At the beginning of war, we together were doing everything possible, what we could, together with our partners. We were looking for ways how we can help the materials, evacuation, and trying to rescue everything. But it's impossible to do everything, so we were trying to specialize. We are doing two things really good. We are documenting the heritage of Ukrainian heritage during the war in order to cope with the consequences, and second is digitalization of museums. In order to do the documenting, we are going on expeditions. As for today, we've covered 15 regions already, around 1,000 objects, and there are two big directions why we are doing that. First of all, to save, stabilize, and do the recovery with the methodology CRON, and secondly, for the criminal against Russia, for forensic heritage documentation. And we also give the data to militaries in order to take that into account in their operations. Second big direction is digitalization, and in particular of the museums, according to the international standards and Ukrainian realities. Of course, in order for the heritage, which is not accessible by the visitors and also which is closed during the war, to have that in digital and to make that available to the world in Ukrainians and to have the information just in case if that is lost physically, we will have at least digital information. But that's all about huge knowledge about what to do, how to document. That's a huge amount of knowledge that became even more accessible and open since the beginning of war. And correspondingly, we need not just to do our work, but also to think and to grow and to improve ourselves, because it's totally different war. And that's also about the management of knowledge. And actually those things, that is our contribution to the hub, and on a bit higher level, because hub is about cooperation and interaction, not just between the three of us, but actually with all the initiatives. And there's a lot of those in the field of heritage preservation. And 2 days we were meeting in Lviv 2 days ago, and now we have this meeting in Kyiv. It's important not just to document and digitalize, but also to think where things are preserved and for it to be accessible in 1 and in 10 years to our children. So the base of knowledge, database, is very important. And we also can document the needs and threats, not just the destruction. And actually the infrastructure and how to structure those, how to make them accessible, and how to enrich the knowledge, because we understand that not just we are enriching ourselves, the world is also not ready to the world, so we can improve and the things known by international community as for today. So infrastructure of the base of knowledge, our colleagues are writing books and handbooks, and we will ensure their placement and for a community to be able to create, to co-create in all of that. And actually, why do we need to coordinate ourselves? Resources are not endless, and we need to coordinate our efforts not to duplicate the work that we do. At the beginning, it was done in order to survive, but the resources are not endless, and in order to distribute somehow, because some haven't received help yet, and some need something else, so we can improve our efforts and do more. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Vasil, and I would like to give the floor to Ihor Pashavailo, CEO of National Museum of Revolution Dignity, co-founder Agency for Cultural Resilience, that will provide the opportunity to all the interested parties to participate in the events, developing the channels and protocols for coordination of cooperation among various institutions. Please tell us practically how this regional hub will work, what is needed in order to join it, and what opportunities it can provide to those institutions that are less active as for today, more active, and where that will be actually. Hello everyone. It's a really nice event and very important even today, because Ukraine is joining the world and global network of hubs, that is the fifth hub or center of quick response to emergency situations. It's very important thanks to our international partners, mostly from the Netherlands. So thank you very much to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands and CR, and also many other international partners and Ukrainian partners. A bit broader context, Vasil mentioned the beginning, how that all started, and it was very important to react properly to the threats that happened at such a big scale in the first weeks, days, and even months of war. We needed resources, knowledge, support, coordination. Well, of course, and then we had the idea, we founded the Heritage Preservation Hub, which was also together with the CR, and we had the question how to act properly, how to help not just our institutions, but also others. And we need to combine our efforts and resources, knowledge, opportunities, and what is most important, during the first days where our foreign partners were asking each of us many times per day, how we can help you. And I think that the answer to how to help us is creating new structures that are uniting, structures that help us to act vertically and horizontally in more efficient manner. And what is also important, because now we are talking about the non-governmental initiative, it's very important for our work horizontally to impact the vertical direction also. And today Vasil mentioned we have a lot of separate specialist groups, initiatives in Ukraine that are trying to do everything possible in their situation, reacting to the threats and destroying cultural identity and heritage. And in this context, creating a hub, I think it's the prospect of not just uniting resources and efforts, but it's impacting our cultural policy, and it's impacting the strategy creating, quick reaction to emergency situations on the state level. I think it should be one of the main results, and where it will be, how that will act, it's the issue of time. And actually, we as the three NGOs, we are the basis for the network which is acting already, which will be expanded, developed, and what we've been doing also briefly. At first, we've been doing all we could, as Vasil mentioned, everything that was necessary with the support of international donors. And it's nice, to remember that thanks to CER, and back then it was the founder Franz Klaus, we received the first grant, relatively small amount of money, but that helped us in 1 year the most important year, to do a lot and to found some things that we are doing as of today, I guess. And really, we were doing expeditions. We are doing that together. We are assessing the damages, the risks, and we adapted the form and translated that. The form for assessing immovable heritage and movable heritage. And as of today, this form was improved also by UNESCO, and it has the brand UNESCO Chrome. The form on assessing risks and damage of the immovable heritage, cultural heritage. We need to implement that into our legislation and our practice. Since the very first days, we had such a problem. We are talking not just about the symbolic event of just founding and launching the hub. We are talking about challenges and problems. And it's important for us, for all of these efforts of both international donors. We are not just talking about the materials, equipment. We are talking about that important international experience, because these 4 hubs have unique experience. That's a global, in a global sense. That is Caribbean region, that is Latin America, that is the Baltic countries. How many investments the international community is making into Ukraine to make those investments not just efficient as for today, but also sustainable in the nearest future and in remote, in far future. We need to create a structure that will be viable, efficient, and long term. And in this context, back in the first year, 2022, we've developed this strategy for creating the system of quick response, one of the first components, in addition to everything that my colleagues mentioned before me, groups of quick reacting, the cultural rescuers, so to say. It has to be the resource base of materials, equipment, not just in order to have the museums, but to have the quick response, to have the mobile teams on the national level and regional level and local level. In order for us to be able to create certain model here in Kyiv or in Lviv, for example, and to disseminate that and to project that to the regions, especially those regions where it's most relevant. It's nice to have Odesa with us. And actually in our network, and we have colleagues also in Kharkiv. In Kharkiv, we have the group of quick reacting. I think that this initiative on the city level will be our, hopefully, by our updated Ministry of Culture, it will be, there will be promotion in the nearest days, hopefully, promotion of this system, that it will get the support, and for us to talk not just about the stakeholders and our colleagues from international institutions and cultural institutions of Ukraine, but from our authorities, first of all, because they need to have some response in terms of cultural preservation from the National Police and the Armed Forces of Ukraine and State Emergency Service and many, many others. Actually, a lot of things have been done in this sense, and we will have important few hours where we will be able to hear our colleagues, and there will be representatives not just of cultural institutions, but representatives of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Office of Prosecutor General, and Territorial Defense Forces, National Police, State Emergency Service. Those colleagues who will help us to implement those ideas and programs and our capacities that we are creating and developing, as of today, in the field of cultural heritage preservation, because we understand that only together and only by combining our efforts, we will be able to be efficient and not just use the resources temporarily, but even the opportunity to be in the focus of attention of international community for some time while the war lasts. Further processes are important for us, processes of stabilization, early recovery, rebuilding of Ukraine. And in this context, it's important for us to work already with certain international standards for our legislation to be harmonized. And we are talking not just about the legislative level, where we are talking about the theory and about the opportunities, but we are saying that all of those international standards, we are trying them, we are changing and adapting them to our realities, and we have certain experience that might be, even as of today, used on the legislative level, and there will be certain time when Ukraine will share own experience with other countries in order for us to be able to efficiently defend our cultural heritage, our identity, and our future. Thank you very much, Mr. Ihar, and the question, clarification to Ms. Frohl, because the Black Sea Regional Hub CR is already the fifth one. Please tell us about its peculiarities, how the Black Sea Hub will be different from all others, what are the expectations, what difficulties, in your opinion, in Ukrainian context, you will face, and how long that will be functioning, and what are the main tasks that you expect from it.
Yes, so the Black Sea Hub is very different from the other four in the sense that the other four have been created because of natural hazards. So, for instance, in the Caribbean and Central American region, they have a lot of problems due to volcano eruptions, to hurricane season. In the Western Balkans, it's mainly floodings. So again, it's natural hazards. In the only one that could be comparable maybe to the Black Sea region is the one created in the Levant, because that was created after the blast in the port. So it was a man-made hazard, and they have been also in continuous conflict. But this has been the first hub that has been created in a war situation. So partners here, civil society, have gathered a lot of knowledge, and they have a huge challenge because they have to continue responding to the needs that are created by all the damage that brings the war, but still, like Igor really well mentioned, this is an initiative that has to be horizontally but also vertical. So one of the big challenges is horizontally how to reach as many institutions, cultural institutions as possible, so they can benefit of the knowledge and the support, because the cultural heritage system is an ecosystem that is not only about national heritage, but is also about private collections, so it's broader than what we can imagine. Is archives, is libraries, is museums, is monuments, is sites. So all these people have to be gathered and understand how to better protect heritage. But we have to go further, and we have to involve also civil protection, military, fire brigades, because alone we cannot do this work. So we have to gather all the people that are very knowledgeable in emergency response and try to speak the same language, try to go and work together. And also we need vertical support. We need the authorities to understand that it's really important to translate everything that we are doing in policies, in legislation. And we also need the society to understand that culture is really crucial and important, and it has to be safe during the emergencies, because if we don't do it now, it's lost forever.
Thank you so much for your answer. I would like to return to the practical issue, because we have the viewers and listeners, representatives of cultural community, and the question of the regional hub, Black Sea Regional Hub, is very relevant for Ukraine. I would ask to focus on the main moments, how that will function, how people can join that, or in which way. Tell us more about this, please. Mr. Ihar, please. Thank you. The question was a bit earlier. I didn't highlight that till the end, but in Kyiv we already have certain hub, which is mostly focused on the materials and defense equipment, and we are acting based on the Museum of Maidan, because that was one of the initiatives, together with creating the Office on Heritage Preservation. So we are trying to ensure all the needs for our colleagues in the regions, namely about provision of materials. And since the very first days, I guess, more than 300 museums had all the necessary equipment. So here in Kyiv, we already have this hub, and why it's important to create the Black Sea Regional Hub. Today we announced that it's being launched, but it doesn't mean that we just start working today. As a matter of fact, it's generalizing everything that had been made before. It is strengthening and expanding our work. And also we've got the resource base. It will be available online very soon, and we have, well, it's the first time when we have in the cultural environment, methodological materials, in particular the CROM and UNESCO on evacuation of cultural heritage or values, and also we have the toolkit, we have the manual, which was translated and disseminated. Since the very first days of war, we were asking ourselves the question, what do we need in terms of methodology? Therefore, certain instructions were developed on quick response, on like fighting the fires, some really like certain things. So this database is already accessible, but in the framework of the hub, we will create certain portal, obviously, where all the necessary material will be collected. There will be resources also, and informational portals, websites of our organizations in parallel. That is, it will be possible to find like in diversified manner. We will have also our office here in Kyiv. I mean, in our direction of quick response, there will be the hotline. We will have the group of quick response. And recently, together with the CROM, UNESCO, and other international partners, we conducted trainings on forming national and regional teams for quick response. And we will have similar centers also in the regions, because we received really positive feedback, and the trainings that were conducted recently in quite intense manner in CROM and UNESCO, and they were involving representatives from national authorities and local self-governments that are actually responsible. And this is the horizontal work that we are trying to make. And I think like Kharkiv, this is a positive example. It's just the beginning. Odesa, I guess, state authorities are actively involved in reacting to the hazards and damages. So here in Kyiv, at least as for the Agency on Resilience Culture, well, we will have really good office with materials, equipment, with all the necessary resources in order to launch the necessary small team. So in order to react to the problems, we have small digital laboratory with Lviv and CR help. This is digitalizing not for everyone, but it's helping to those organizations and institutions that are trying to digitalize their collections in the regions with threats. So it's mobile. The very idea is like the distribution, or like we don't have to procure the expensive equipment together, but we have to have the possibility to share. So this laboratory is already functioning, and so here in Kyiv we will have our office and the direction that Agency for Cultural Resilience is working. I forgot to mention the symbolic thing also, because this year the world is celebrating the Hague Convention in 1954. Many hopes we had for this Hague Convention that had to protect cultural heritage. Hague Convention is like reacting to the losses and damages during the World War II. There were two protocols, and it was clear that a convention itself needs some mechanism. For Ukraine, it's very relevant and important, and many things. Well, how will be acting in the context of provisions of Hague Convention in creating like CPP and forensic also investigations, as Vasily mentioned, in order to collect all the necessary facts and evidence for the International Criminal Court and other jurisdictions that will be created, namely for bringing people to criminal liability. And in Hague, we were coming together in the idea of creating the Black Sea Regional Hub. It was born there in the environment of very fruitful discussions during the international conference dedicated to Hague Convention and there were colleagues from other CR hubs, and we agreed upon the directions that we are going to develop to the maximum here in Ukraine. And it's very important to have the combination of the symbolic and practical things that are behind this important and symbolic fact. Thank you very much, Mr. Ihor. I would like to ask Mr. Vasil Rushko. Lately, Lviv was attacked by a combined Russian attack. Drones and the rockets hit the city, and some memorials were damaged, and a big number of houses were also damaged, those that have cultural, historical value for the city. From your experience, how did you see how the reaction of the local authorities changed and those who are protecting the culture in reacting to these challenges right now? Do you see the dynamics and some changes that were there at the beginning of the full-scale invasion? And what do you see? What kind of prospects do you see from your side? Thank you. I will start answering this question, and then I will switch to more global issues that my colleagues mentioned. So we are documenting the hits and if from the city authorities. We have had 12 objects, then as of today, we documented 47, and unfortunately, there is much more. I think that it's very important to have quick reaction. When for the first time we came to help document to the Odesa Museum, it was very cool that they did not. So, like, the criminal investigation requires some evidence, and they require the remnants that are not touched. So it's really good that they did not touch that before they came. So the documenting should happen as soon as possible, and unfortunately nowadays the authorities and some systemic changes, they are happening a bit later still, but they are happening because we made a map for the ministry regarding how these objects are coming to the buffer zone, UNESCO's buffer zone. So it's not something local, but it's the territory which is closed, and the framework of cultural heritage, and it's the other level of issue. But returning to your question regarding how people can join and how they can do something, well, here, Ihor, you mentioned some niche things and cooperation. Well, first of all, we are documenting the destruction of memorials and museums, unfortunately, and that's our specialty. Colleagues are calling us, and we are doing that. And if we cannot do that, then we are trying to do that as fast as possible. And it's very important that in its chaos and huge amount of objects, we need to work on that. And there are forms that take 20, 30 pages, and we need time in order to fill that in. But the state administration or local authorities, they need the data as soon as possible. Therefore, we made the first portal, Heritage in UA, where you already can, like, part of objects are still in the process, but the whole world can already use this immediately without waiting to find it somewhere in the database, because we need that already. As for digitalization also, what is important, we are taking international standards, how to digitalize, how to make a list of those objects. But with the support of CER, with our colleagues, we are taking various institutions, not just museums, it might be institutes, Institute of Archaeology or something like that, that have really valuable things, but they kind of fell out of the museum collection, etc. And if we are talking about the materials, then together with Ihor, we tried 2 years ago to make a portal where you can write about your needs and the donors can see in general the picture. But actually, what is the core of our cooperation on this level? The platform is functioning if there are, like, the users, suppliers. So this platform will be useful for that then, and then we have good cooperation and communication. Therefore, how we can help and how you can join. Well, hub, it's like the entrance point to the network, it's like some kind of a center. And physically, it might look like, just like Ihor has a range of such spots in Kyiv. We have in Lviv, Kyiv, Kharkiv, Odesa, our teams. There are partner museums and institutions. However, it's not faster. It's like different layers, Some are working on quick rescuing, some are working on writing the methodology, and it's like when you are coming, what is the core? What is the sense of network? No matter where you enter the network, but you will find someone who is specialized in some things. And you are going to come to Ihor, to Daria, or to us, depending on your needs. And this is the sense, in my opinion. It's like to be kind of fully wet in water. The necessity of vertical was mentioned, but if our community, a different community, will understand what is needed and they will work and talk about that every day, I'm sure that we will be useful to our ministries. We will find how to improve legislative acts, etc., because it's part of our responsibility while we are here in civil life and Russia is destroying our heritage. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Vasilin. I think it's high time to come to the opportunity to ask questions from the room. Please take the microphone. I see some questions. Hello. First of all, greetings. Congratulations with today's announcement and the beginning of Hub's work. And the question, well, actually the answer was mentioned, I guess, from each speaker, but I would like to maybe focus in a separate question. I know that participation of the Ministry of Culture, representative of Ministry of Culture, was mentioned in this presentation. So obviously, due to rapid changes, maybe the representative could not join, but tell us, please, about how successful do you see the experience of previous cooperation? And obviously, the participation of the ministry means, in the conference, means that you are planning to cooperate. Well, why I am so interested? Because I do understand that cultural heritage is a really broad field and it cannot be covered, like all the problems can't be covered just by non-governmental initiatives, no matter how powerful they are. What plans, well, not just about the ministry I'm talking, but also about local self-governments. Well, the experience of Lviv was mentioned here. Please, briefly, maybe each speaker can say a few words. I will start. Thank you, Arha. Well, we dream of and we are acting in order to be really efficient in documenting losses, for example. We have some field work, and now we have approximately 1,000 objects that have been researched, but there is also distant monitoring, approximately 500 objects after the ministry has stopped the website in 2022. We are trying before our trips distantly to understand, to see the objects. In addition to that, we have our international partners in Ukraine. They are sharing data, and there are our colleagues from regions. That's a huge amount of data. We have 19 now layers and a lot of unique objects. And if the ministry has approximately 1,100 objects according to their data, then in database we have now much more, and we see our role to complement, to add something that we've got, something that we've checked, because it's not just the list, because each object was approved either by the architects or specialists, and for that to be useful not just to the ministry but also for UNESCO. And as for today, they say that almost 400 objects are destroyed, and we can provide the data, and this number will be closer to reality, and it's much more than 1,000. One of the conceptual, I guess, the central principles of CER, the founder of hubs, is decentralization principle. And I guess it is crucial when reacting to the situation that is not just in Ukraine, because in post-Soviet space, we are used to looking at someone from the top, that someone will do, someone will just tell us how to do. But the experience of Ukraine during the Revolution of Dignity and during the full-scale war, the state is strong when citizens are conscious and active. So we need support from, of course, our authorities, because according to our legislation, according to our constitution, they are obliged to be the pillar in cultural heritage preservation. Now, in the process of decentralization, we understand they are quite active as a post-revolution reform, and we understand all the threats and challenges. We understand that the Ministry of Culture has been criticized a lot after the full-scale invasion regarding their inefficiency. And we do understand that the capacities of state organizations were not high. But in these 2.5 years, we see certain changes. We see people who are coming new, young. They're trying to change something. We do understand that huge support and control is there from the side of non-governmental sector. And there is attempt of big support even from our side. And that was, I guess, one of the main approaches in the Agency for Cultural Resilience. We were just not functioning separately, like we are so cool, we are doing something, that's it. No, we were coming to our authorities all the time and we said, like, let us found this, let us do this. The only thing is that the Ministry of Culture didn't always have dialogue with us. They didn't always like the ideas, but we also understand that there's a lot of challenges. We were talking about the forms, like the Cabinet of Ministers back in the end of 2022, they had certain legislative act where even those brief forms, acts of visual observation, etc., they were developed. But the issue was we were trying to involve those international opportunities, and we were trying to implement the international practices to our legislation. Here, there are big prospects because I guess Ministry of Culture didn't do much as a result. However, there is a lot of efforts. I see representatives of the Ministry of Culture on most international forums. They are initiating, organizing various important conferences here in Ukraine, but we need result, of course. We need communication. I guess from the side of Ministry of Culture, we need to involve more actively those initiatives that exist as for today. Similar hubs, similar centers should be created at the Ministry of Culture, and the Ministry of Culture has to create conditions, not just to give the money and create the rules for the game, but to create efficient, good conditions in order for any initiatives in the cultural sector, especially in terms of preservation of cultural heritage, to be efficient. What I would like to mention regarding our organization, we are not direct operator, right? We are not the ones to communicate with the ministry. How we are working, like museum or the library are coming to us and they say like what is necessary, what actions, and we are the consultants. We might be the fundraisers for money and opportunity, but they are communicating with the ministry directly. They are solving all their issues with them. As the worker of the art museum, I can tell that we've realized everything is in our hands. We realized that long ago, and we do understand that, well, primarily we have to do the fundraising. We have to look for the patrons, for someone to donate, that our Odesa community, which is coming and buying our merch, like in any way, not even with big amount of money, this is something that will save us. We don't hope for others. Maybe it's benefit, maybe it's our strength or not, but we are cooperating more with our department. And as for the ministry, we don't always have quick response to all those issues. Therefore, here we are using some acquaintances of ours and we are trying to promote some issues. Like, for example, we received the national status back in 2021. However, as a matter of fact, this status is not implemented. That is, we still have same salaries, we just have the name. that was changed. And all the time, this process continues. I do understand that now we have the full-scale invasion and the team of the ministry is not that big, because they are saying, like, just to involve the opportunities, we will support you in the issues, like, where we can, we will help you. So we are hoping for the new team, and, like, hopefully we will succeed. Thank you. Yeah, another question?
Wanted to add to this question about working with the authorities. Since the full-scale invasion, we saw that there was a very strong civil society force in Ukraine. And this is also very healthy if we think about democracies as well. So grassroots initiatives that have this transformative power. And I think it's really crucial that changes come from the people that are on the ground, the people that understand the needs, and they translate this not only to the Ministry of Culture, right, but also to local authorities, to municipalities, who at the end of the day are also custodians of the heritage of those places and regions. So I think there is a lot of advocacy power in these organizations that are really connected to the problems, and they are working day and night to solve these issues. So the most important thing is we unite our voices here locally, and we also will try to do it internationally. And I'm really grateful also that our government from the Netherlands is here present with us, because it's really important to hear from the people that are suffering the problems, what are the needs.
If I may add to that, I think the key words here are cooperation and coordination, and also complementarity. As was mentioned before, the resources are scarce, whereas the challenges are immense at the moment. And if in a platform such as this Black Sea Hub initiative, key partners from civil society can work together with the international community, with as much as possible strong involvement of the government of Ukraine, then we get to a situation where there is more joint hands in realizing the common objectives that we all stand for. And the government of Ukraine has said very clearly recently in the Vilnius call for action, in a conference organized jointly by the government of Lithuania and the government of Ukraine last June, that it gives high priority to the strengthening of the cultural sector in Ukraine, both representatives from the Ministry of Culture and representatives from the Office of the Prosecutor General, as well as representatives from the Office of the President, have confirmed that. And in that context, I would also like to bear out what Mr. Ihor Poshivalio said earlier about the Hague Convention of 1954, which this year is commemorated its 70th anniversary, and is an international treaty that couldn't be more contemporary than ever, given all the international conflict and war in Ukraine in particular. So if we can, by this platform, by this initiative, also work on with all the civil society organizations that are connected to it, to provide the data, to provide the forensic data that was mentioned also earlier by Mr. Vasily here, how to collect that with teams in the field that can provide information at a later stage, also after the war, hopefully, when we come to terms in accountability, what is happening here and what has happened. Yeah, and of course also we facilitate in The Hague, in the Netherlands, the registry on war crimes. And as you all know now, cultural war crimes against culture are also war crimes that are brought forward to this new registry in The Hague. So also in that context and in the context of the Hague Convention, this is very important what's happening here and what is launched here today. Thank you.
Що ми реально потребуємо від міністерства і не
Well, what we really need from the ministry and what we cannot do ourselves as a professional community, where it can be helpful, that is relevant machine registry of memorials, that is a registry of museums, because we don't have the full list. And second field is actually by doing the digitalization, it's very important for us, for these standards, for us not to work on our own, because now officially we don't even have some digital list. And this field of standards, we need the ministry to help us. The final question. Halina Yelieva, head of International Media Project Ukraine, is learning about the world and highlighting international cooperation of Ukraine with various countries of the world. First of all, from the colleague journalist, I would like to thank sincerely to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, Mr. Robert and Ms. Vanessa, for your help to our partners. And briefly, we are planning in the project to have the event in the end of October regarding the destruction of the art heritage of Ukraine, and there will be two key issues: the Museum of Skovoroda in Kharkiv and Museum of Maria Pryimachenko. We know that a lot of things were saved, and we know that there was wonderful exhibition in this Ukrainian house and also in Lviv. We don't know where those projects go further on, but how can we engage into this cooperation? And actually, the question to Mr. from Lviv, maybe you have some more precise data that you can share about Pryimachenko and Skovoroda. Thank you. Well, as for Skovoroda, we have separate analytical report, which is big, and fortunately or unfortunately, we have data before the hit and 3D model after the hit. And thanks to the decisions that were made 10 years ago, I was in the Ministry for Management of Museums. We have the list of objects, museum objects, before the destruction, so we will just exchange our contacts later on. Thank you. Thank you. Then here it's the end for today, and we had the event of presenting the Black Sea Regional Hub, CER, and this is a very significant event for Ukrainian culture, even though the hub is already working, not the first year, but now it's done more actively. It will be the 5th regional hub of cultural emergency response, so let us work. Thank you.